Good morning. This is Michelle with Dynamic Change, and you are listening to KPCALP in Petaluma, a free-range radio station. Thank you for tuning in today. And what I'm going to be discussing this show is providing psychological techniques and guided meditations for somatic release, releasing your emotional buildup in your body, and that can be formed from trauma, from just really difficult experiences, and just the stress of life that can be stored in our bodies. So, what I do in this show is that I provide techniques for adjusting your thinking, emotional therapy techniques, and guided meditation to work through emotional blocks in your body. So you're working on the somatic level as well. And I am a certified wellness coach, self-defense instructor, fitness trainer, and also I have a degree in psychology. So I have an extensive background working with these different types of modalities. And for more information on me, if you would like to have it, you can go to my website, which is dynamicchangewellness.com. You can also email me through the website with you if you have any questions or topics or emotional challenges you would like kind of broken down and addressed and given some techniques to help heal and move through that. And if you go to my website, the email is there, but it's dcwellness88@gmail.com. dcwellness88 at gmail.com. So you can always contact me through that. And I upload these shows weekly onto my YouTube channel, which is Michelle Love with Dynamic Change and Wellness. So I hope everyone is fantastic today. It's extremely beautiful out, and spring is definitely happening. So what I would like to talk about today is really when we have gone through some sort of abuse, a physical abuse, or of a more intimate type of abuse, and there is trauma and triggers within our body. I mean, it also triggers your mind, but sometimes we have these things where it's really, we feel bad about ourselves, and it translates into feeling bad about our bodies as well. So I want to talk about the connection of when we have a mental negative thought about the self and also about our body, how we can work on shifting that, shifting the thinking and moving the energy and emotional context we have stored within our body to start undoing that and appreciating ourselves and releasing that pain, because the triggers are going to come up, and that is not something that you can necessarily stop with trauma. But to get ahead of that, the type of work I do is to start working on all the different layers of yourself, which is your mind. So planning ahead of time, kind of setting yourself up for moving towards a different reaction to those triggers. Because there's so many layers. But first we have to work on our mind, and then we got to work on our emotion, like the emotional reaction to that trigger from the trauma, and then also the physicality of it, how you feel in your body. So there's like these several different layers. So today I'm excited to talk about reclaiming your body. Okay, so reclaiming your sense of self from those type of triggers. So domestic violence, or physical traumas, intimate traumas, or even having intimacy traumas as an adult. All these things really impact how we think. If we have like negative thoughts that we've turned in on ourselves from the experience, or the trigger brings up these really negative kind of content, remembering things, or It just feels disturbing, doesn't feel right. And we really want to feel good in our bodies. We really want to feel like we can be in charge of our experience, our internal experience, and start shifting that. And to me, those type of experiences are really, it's like a poison. So to find a way to shift it is so powerful, because the thing is, we don't want to be affected by this poison for the rest of our life, right? It'd be better to find a way to release that pain, and so we don't have to identify with that pain the rest of our life. And so basically, we want to survive it, and part of survival, in my opinion, is moving forward. What does the other side look and feel like? Because I think trauma often impacts us in a way where we feel stuck. We feel like that has to be our experience for the rest of our life, and that's not the case. And that's depressing. We don't want that. We want joy and happiness, and be able to identify with the beauty in the world, and identify with our own beauty inside of ourselves, and feel all parts of ourselves feeling, happy, feeling like we deserve to be respected, deserve to feel seen, and to feel appreciated by others. And so we have to first feel that within ourselves, so we radiate that. And so anyway, I mean, life unfortunately does have a lot of really difficult challenges to go through that often, you pretty much, I think mostly everybody has some brush up against some amount of trauma. And even if it was someone that we care for very deeply went through it, and we were even just a witness, we want to find ways to continuously release that kind of pain. And every time we heal ourselves, it helps heal the people that are really close to us, and even the people that we just come into contact with within our daily lives. So I might give you an example. I make up imaginary situations with an imaginary name to give you kind of a story to follow along of an experience, and how it can affect the emotional body, our somatic body, and our thinking. And then I walk you through it. I make it as accessible and easy to follow as possible, so we can easily understand how we can undo these challenges that we've gone through in life, so we can be at the other side. We can learn from them and heal them. And what we learn from them is, if you get to the other side, is the strength and resilience we can muster up within us, and we can have compassion and empathy for others that have gone through the same experience. Because humans, people, we share these challenges. It is so common, these things that happen, and a lot of times they are not talked about, often not talked about. And generations back, they never had the relief of being able to talk about it. So these things come up to the surface, that we have these patterns in our society, within all the people on the whole planet, really need to start finding a better way to handle anger and rage and fear, which I think is and mental illness, all of it. Like, how can we heal those issues? How can we be there for each other to create a safe space for talking about the things that we've gone through, to give a safe container of compassion and empathy, and so there's not guilt and shame, that we can realize that these are things that we can heal and move forward and realize how strong we can be, so that society can move forward in a way where we don't have to keep perpetuating these patterns that are so destructive to our well-being. They help no one. So I would like to start with, I'm going to make up a name, and I'm going to say John. And I'm going to pick domestic violence. This is also going to, I'm going to do domestic violence, but I'm doing both today. Domestic violence and an abuse on an intimate level. Okay? So I'm going to say that John grew up with both types of abuse. That there was domestic violence within the family, and there was violations on an intimacy level that he endured, which is, really a difficult thing to grow up with. So as John grows up, not only does he feel like he has to stuff and hide those two traumas. I'm not a man, but I would, the privilege I have gotten from being able to communicate with males that have grown up with really difficult challenges like this, thus far, what I have been able to learn about their experience is that it's even more buried than the female's experience of this. So I think it's even a deeper challenge, because females, we have pushed in society and pushed for survival from healing these type of traumas, that we've really demanded that we be able to communicate about it, because it is a reality. What I have heard about the male experience is that it is such, I think the males in our society, the way we present the masculine, is that they are not allowed to show vulnerability very easily. And the unfortunate thing about that is, when they have gone through this experience, these kinds of painful experiences, how do we give them a container for it to be safe for them to come forward? And if they are always and I don't agree with these patterns in society. I think that I'll speak to like the masculine, the feminine. I really think we need to have balance with that, which means that everyone should be allowed to be human, that women should have the same equality as the men, people of color. Everyone should be the same, in my opinion. And the positive for that, with adjusting the male dominant society that we have had in the United States, what will also benefit the masculine by balancing those things out is it gives the masculine a place where it's allowed to be vulnerable, to have healing, which is so profound, because everyone needs healing. And when everyone, if we're just trying to be there for each other, regardless of our gender, our sexuality, our, heritage, the color of our skin, if we can just try to relate in a way where we're all human, we're all imperfect, and we need to strive for putting the best foot forward we can in every situation, and so we can be there for each other. So I think the masculine within our society could really benefit from the feminine coming up, to really have, an equal place, so we can equally support each other. And I think the masculine could benefit from having a safe container to open up and release the poison if they have gone through these wounds, because it does happen to them too. And So let's say John, grew up with these things, and he was really fortunate that he married a partner that was really compassionate and really saw them and realized that they had some things that had become like a block, solid. When we stuff things, there's a couple things that happens within the psyche. For one thing, you can stuff it into a compartment, right? To where it's never visited. A lot of times things are not even remembered because the psyche's way of kind of surviving painful experiences is we block it out. So sometimes we'll be fortunate enough to have someone in our lives. So let's say John had someone that said, you know, I realize that not only do you not remember a lot of your childhood, but you also really seem to shut down at certain times where I cannot get to you. His partner's like, I want to be able to be there for you. I want to be able to um, still feel connected to you. But there are times when I feel like you have to check out, and I'm just wondering what that's about. So let's say John's made up imaginary fantastic mate. Her name is Sue. And I really appreciate Sue in this moment. How wonderful, that she's able to recognize when her husband is all of a sudden gone and kind of disappeared, and wondering what that's about. And let's say Sue grew up with really challenging stuff, and she's been really going to therapy for a long time, really working on it. And so she recognizes that behavior of just kind of someone shutting down, not even if they don't know why, and or there's a trigger, something might trigger them, and all of a sudden he's kind of freezes up within himself, and then maybe he really withdraws a lot, or maybe there is some anger that gets triggered because he grew up with this domestic violence and violation, and he's like feels that he needs to shut down on one level, but there's also this anger, this rage that has been stuffed down because part of him just had to kind of deal with it, kind of swallow, push it down. And so when we are that kind of poison, when we are forcing it down within our subconscious, we're forcing it down to some place within our being. It's not like it goes nowhere. And so with trauma, it stays in our body. It stays in your subconscious. It's still there. So, the things that give you clues that you may have something that's been sitting down within your being is that in some way you feel triggered that doesn't make sense. Like, wow, I just have this, rage that comes up, and, it gets triggered by maybe a certain time of year. Maybe that something really bad, a bad abuse happened one summer at this particular age, and there's, every time we try to go out to a vacation to that particular spot at that particular time of the year, we've tried to do that, and for some reason I just feel, John's like, I just feel mad, or I feel really sad, and I feel disturbed every time I try to go to that place and at that time of the year, and I don't know why. And the wife Sue is like, wow, I think that's about something, because you always, they're like, there's no reason otherwise of how to explain your reaction. There just seems to be this, defense mechanism that's coming up in response to this situation that triggers you. So so let's say John starts to listen to her and be like, yeah, I don't know why that happens. And and he's really brave. He's willing to look at, maybe there is something I need to consider here. And so he notices, and it's really good to get as much support as possible. Maybe Sue has been, maybe she saw a therapist for a very long time, or she still sees them. Maybe they could, at that point, she could talk to her therapist and ask her therapist, who would you recommend for my partner? And then maybe later on they could do couples counseling, but he would need to start his own healing by himself. That's the most appropriate for him to have that safe container and really have someone be there for him. So maybe that therapist could recommend, I've heard about this great, male therapist or female therapist, see what resonates the most with him, or there's a men's group for, and I'm hoping there's a lot of men's groups. I really want to speak to the healing of the masculine. I think we need really support for the males to move forward and open up these wounds. And so they need groups. And I know there's a lot of fantastic men out there doing this type of work, but I think we need it as much as possible. That we need groups for men, that we need great therapists and people that can really give them support for opening up about these challenging topics. Women have been doing it for a long time, and we've really pushed to have that support, and men need it too. So I'm hoping that there is as many things opening up for men as possible, so they feel safe to move forward with opening up to their vulnerability, to the things they've had to endure, and allow that healing. And that's how we can stop these patterns from continue to perpetuate in life, is that everyone needs a place to bring that pain to, in a way where they can receive some support and ultimate healing. So maybe Sue finds this referral for a couple of names, and she gives it to her husband, says, here's a couple of people that I've heard about that do great work with this kind of stuff. And maybe they do the EMDR work, like the tapping work. So there's acupressure points within our body. So a lot of people have heard about the tapping, and the tapping really does work. The EMDR is like the rapid eye movement techniques. There's certain techniques that access the subconscious, access activate the mind in different ways. The tapping, the acupressure points that you do all over the body, which is very easy to get that information. You can basically Google it, and you can look it up online, and you can download the manuals for these type of things. When you tap and do the patterns that they speak about on the body, those acupressure points help bring up the trauma to the surface and help it be released. So it's to help move the energy, to access the subconscious, because we have energy that runs through our body. So they're tapping different points on the meridians, the lines of energy in the body, to help the person process that trauma and release it and move it, bring it up, release it, move it. Because somatically, like in our body, this stuff gets really stuck, and it gets really, I think when it's severe trauma, often the person had to block it. They couldn't even handle looking at it, which is a survival technique, totally appropriate. But if we get to that place where we're like, wow, I know I have some stuff that is really unknown to me, but I know it's there. Often that starts to come up to the surface. I know something's there. I know I can't even remember it, and it's disrupting my life, and it's having a negative impact on my life. And so those kinds of modalities, you can find a therapist that does those type of modalities, is a way where you can have someone hold some space for you as you start to allow yourself to open up to whatever you're ready for. And the tapping is a nice, gentle way. So sometimes, let's say John, at that point, he's like, well, I'm not ready to go to a therapist, but I am ready to, maybe open up to the possibility and move forward in that direction. So maybe he decides, I want to try the tapping. His wife's like, I did that. And Sue was like, this was really helpful. It was a good place to kind of start opening things up. He could try something like that. He and just see if all of a sudden he's like, oh, I do feel more opening, and now I feel some emotions, and now I feel ready to go talk to someone. I feel like it's accessible. I don't want to get overwhelmed by these feelings, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So it could play out in a way that he was comfortable with, and or he could look for a men's group, and maybe there's a men's group where they can talk about growing up with domestic violence and other types of abuses. So again, my name is Michelle Love, and you are listening to Dynamic Change on the radio TV station KPCALP in Petaluma. And what I'm talking about today, I like to break down psychological experiences that we go through that can develop trauma within our being, and how we can move through that, and give you techniques and ways to find help and guided meditations to help move it through your emotional storage within your body to move forward with new behavioral patterns, new ways to understand your thinking, behavior, creating a safe space for yourself and releasing it from your body. So today we are talking about and I give you imaginary people, and so I made up the name John, and he grew up with domestic violence and abuse, violations of an intimate nature, and the imaginary mate that I made up for him, I made up in the name of Sue. And Sue was really, there for her husband and talking to him, saying, you really seem to be shutting down and triggered in a certain repetitive way. And I've had a lot of therapy because she grew up with a lot of things that were very challenging, and she's recognizing this within her husband, and she wants to support him in feeling safe if he is ready to look at this. So she presents this to John. So I'm going to speak to John's experience. So John realizes that he is triggered by a certain time of the year and a certain location where they tend to like to go for their family vacation every year. And let's just say there's a cabin. There's a family cabin, and that's where they go. And he notices every time he goes to this cabin at this time of the year that it really disturbs him, and he's upset, and he doesn't know why. There's like these feelings that come up, they make no sense, and he's triggered. So this traumatic trigger response that he is experiencing, he realizes he feels mad, like really mad, like rage, like I am really mad, and I don't know why, but there's like something that felt really wrong. And I can't remember. I don't know what it is. But all I know is every time I come here at this time of the year, this is what I feel really mad. I don't want to be intimate with my wife. I have a hard time being good company. Like I feel upset. I feel withdrawn. I feel angry. And I feel just disturbed inside. And I don't know what this is. So, what this could be is maybe when the domestic violence and the abuse happened was at that time of the year, there had been a particular experience where something had happened at that, cabin at a certain age that summer or whatever. So, these things get triggered by a situation that, or a location or something that brings that up. from the subconscious, from where it's stored in our body. There's this remembrance, right? That is hard to endure. So to move forward, he notices the thoughts. Okay, so he notices that he feels anxiety, panic, rage. He feels like he can't connect with other people. Maybe there's some shame or guilt that comes up, and he, feels like he has to separate, and just he can only tolerate being by himself, which is like a real drag because he wants to take this time to be with his wife and do this family vacation, but there's always this stuff that comes up, and he ends up having to just go fishing, and he's mad and he's frustrated, he doesn't feel good inside, doesn't feel right, and he has to isolate because he just feels disturbed and he doesn't know why. And then Sue's at the cabin and she's like, oh, I love my husband so much, and I don't know why when we come up here there's this distance, right? So these patterns play out in our lives. And so let's say at that point, so he realizes there's those thoughts of, I'm angry, what they're feelings, but maybe the thoughts that go, like, play out from that kind of trigger are, why, like, maybe he turns it on himself at that point. I'm being a real jerk. Why, what is my problem? I come up here and so he's like attacking himself at that point, right? I come up here, and I can never be happy with my wife. I'm not a good husband, like he's tearing down himself, right? So he could really start turning it down on himself. I'm not lovable. I'm not, I'm not successful enough. I can't do anything right. I try to do, this vacation with my wife. I'm trying to be there for her, and I'm not a, I'm just failing at everything. Let's say that's the kind of, negative thinking that can result from, these deep, deep, deep feelings that are not, there's no truth to any of this. It's a trauma. So when we have these these triggers, this emotional baggage, this poison that is within the body, it's like the mind tries to make sense of all this yucky feelings, this poison, right? So a lot of times we develop this thinking it must be me. I feel bad inside, so I must be bad, right? So it translates into, I must be a bad person. I must, be a failure. I must be unlovable. I must be bad, right? So then there's this mentality that can develop, which all of that, just to give John some empathy, my imaginary person, John, none of it's true. So to extend that out, just know that, whether we grew up with someone saying those kind of things, putting us down, being abusive, and we are enduring a domestic violence family situation and other abuses, none of it's true. Okay, so when people tell you these things as a kid, and you have these experiences, because they're awful experiences, really, it's really awful. Just know that none of that is accurate. That comes from a place of, a parent or a relative or however it happened. The person that is doing that abuse is a sick person. It doesn't excuse it. I'm not wanting to excuse the behavior. To me, there is no ever a good excuse. You don't have to go into automatic pilot and just to choose to keep perpetuating abuse. I really do not believe in that, because I know it can be stopped. I've had a lot of really challenging stuff in my childhood, and I chose not to do that to other people. So it's not easy to address the abuse and to stop abuse and to not continue acting it out, but we do have the choice to want to be the strongest person we can, and to find help, to make that a focus, to provide as much healing within ourselves and our lives and how we affect people. There's no good excuse for that. But to develop understanding of this, the people that do the abuse, are mentally ill sometimes, or at least mildly mentally ill. Either very mentally ill, or you know, or definitely disturbed, have some mental disorders, behavioral personality disorders. And so just knowing that someone that abuses a child in this way, they're not operating from a place of truth. They're not operating from a healthy place where, anything that they say is not, it's coming from a broken place. None of it's true. None of it is accurate or a true reflection of that child. So if someone puts down that child, that's not the truth. So that child, when you get to be an adult, just know that wasn't truth. That wasn't, that was someone that was broken, that, abused someone else. And so really realize that we can pull this stuff apart. We can look at the person that, was doing the abuse, that they really were a damaged person and choosing to do some really not okay stuff, and that we can heal it. It's not who we are. We don't have to stay attached to it the rest of our lives. It may always be something we know we went through, but it can be something that we heal and move forward from, and heal the inner child. And then we can also be so empathetic and be there for people that have gone through that, because these things are so common. So, and there's no shame, it's, the shame is if we keep putting it, stuff it under the rug, sweeping it under the rug. That's a shame, because not only is that to me a lie, because we can't ignore these things. The truth is, these things do happen, and we need to be there for each other. So let's say, John, my imaginary person, realized he had these negative thoughts. And that's like when you do the tapping. I give you the example of the tapping. You start with one of the ways you can do it is like a belief pattern. That's part of the practice. I feel this, and I believe this. And when I believe this thought that I'm, a failure on all levels, or I'm not lovable, it's been a while since I've done tapping, but it's like you start with the belief pattern, and then you tap on, those acupressure points all over the body, and they give you this whole pattern and how to do it as you're saying the belief. And so it's like you're deprogramming your tissue, your somatic response, your deep subconscious emotional, content in your body, by tapping on these places, these acupressure points around the body. And it's really powerful, really works. And that in combination with, some talk therapy, with some deep breathing, to open up the somatic content of the body, meditation, and I love martial arts. I think martial arts is a fantastic thing for men and women, but particularly for men. I think people need a place to release rage that could be stored in the body from enduring these types of abuse. I think rage and anger, there's a healthy expression of that, right? But it should be expressed. I think a lot of times it's very repressed, and we don't have healthy outlets for expressing that. So maybe he decides he's going to start taking martial arts, or pick up boxing or something, gives him a place to, because he has this pent up anger from the past that has been trapped within him from this forgotten place. And and to get it out, you let some of that rage out in a healthy way where no one gets hurt, right? Rather than him blowing up in random, arguments with so and so, or in this situation. He doesn't want to feel that. That makes him feel worse. It's like, oh, it just reinforces these negative self concepts, right? That I'm a bad person. See how I blew up, and he's blowing up because he has this rage that is a really justified response to what he went through, right? So I'm so happy he has Sue, this imaginary person. John has this imaginary fantastic mate named Sue, and she is there for him. She's like, I got you. I'm going to support you in whatever you need. We're going to figure it out. Go to the therapist. So he goes to the therapist. He's been doing the tapping. He's gone to the therapist. He found a men's group, and he picked up martial arts, and he's kicking butt in the dojo. And he's like, man, I'm really starting to feel better, right? And Sue is just like, it makes her heart feel so good, the connection. She's like, I can really see that he is feeling safer, that he is feeling like he can be more open and present with me rather than shutting down, because I think that trauma really creates this distance, this void between us being able to connect and feel safe and have true intimacy. So this is really profound, and I'm so happy for John. I'm so happy for Sue, my imaginary people I've made up. But he's found a way to bring it up, working on the somatic content through the tapping. He's doing talk therapy to give himself some safe container for, talking about these thoughts that go through his mind. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a guided meditation. I'm going to read first an announcement for the radio. Take a little pause here. So I'm going to tell you about one of the shows they have here at the radio station at KPCA LP in Petaluma, and it's called Indoor Windows, and it's on Mondays from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. It's hosted by Art Walker. And to describe the show to you, jump into Uncle Artie's tie-dye time machine on Mondays at 1 p.m. and journey to the center of your mind. This sounds fun. Indoor Windows delivers you an hour of small, psychedelic, paisley prog, garage, fuzz, and other music to help you plan your escape. Your host and guide, Art Walker, serves equal doses of cosmic classics alongside obscure gems. Tune in and vibrate to the music of the late 60s from the days when simply thinking could make it so. That sounds really fun. So what I want to do now is I'm going to ask you to do this with me. And this is something that, that could help for my imaginary person, John, and for Sue, and for anyone that had some trauma as a kid growing up with domestic violence or with a more intimate type of violation, and how to start allowing your body to feel calm. So there's also a degree of fight or flight that the subconscious in your body will develop from these experiences, and you will feel it most prominently when you're triggered, but you'll just, it's really disturbing, and it's really not good for your health. That's another thing I want to say. If we are operating in fight or flight because of all this trauma in our body, that's like high blood pressure, heart attacks, the anxiety levels, all these things are really destructive just to our physical health. So as scary and uncomfortable as it may be to allow yourself to process trauma, I will really want to share that just even for your physical health, it's worth it to stop patterns to within our lives and to facilitate and support healing for everyone, for the men, the women, everybody, and for our kids. is really worth it. So diving bravely into your pain and letting it out so you can feel better and heal and support healing for everyone ultimately is so worth it. And I commend anyone for doing it. So do this with me now. Put my hands palm up on my legs. We're going to take some deep breaths. We're going to inhale, breathing at your breath pace. Inhale deeply. Hold the breath for a moment, and when you exhale, imagine that breath going down through your body and out the soles of your feet down into the earth. So inhale deeply when you're ready. Breathing at your breath pace. Hold the breath for a moment and then exhale. Inhale and exhale. And inhale and exhale. When you exhale, imagine the energy, because we have energy in our body, kind of dropping out at the bottom of your feet and your tailbone and just grounding into the earth. So as we do that, we're going to do a couple grounding breaths, okay? And if you don't feel your energy, just imagine it. Whatever your mind believes your energy will do. So we're going to inhale. When you're ready to exhale, dropping the energy with your mind and your intention out the feet and the tailbone, just comes down like a beam into the earth and grows roots, connecting to the earth. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Last time, inhale. Hold it for a second and release. So I'm going to talk about a meditation for my imaginary person, John. So this meditation is for someone that really needs a safe place, because remember, this is things that he's starting to remember that were repressed, and his psyche couldn't even go there, so he forgot. Okay, so even he doesn't remember much, he just knows there's something there. We're going to put down a foundation of developing a safe place every day. He's going to spend 10 minutes in the yard by himself, a place where he feels safe, and start building an internal safe place for his inner child to start to relax. So when he's ready, as he's working with his therapist, and he's doing his tapping, and he's doing his groups with the other men, that he allows at his own pace to let things kind of bubble up and start to come out in a way that he can manage. But he's going to need a safe place, because he's been operating out of fight or flight when this trauma has been triggered. So that's one of the fight or flight response within our body, is an automatic response that a lot of us will move into, and trauma triggers. And we don't even realize that it can be triggered kind of at a more subtle level. It doesn't have to feel like you're completely losing it, but you're like losing it a little bit. So like it can be triggered, and it can be not so extreme, but you can be operating because you've gotten so used to it, because maybe you grew up with some really intense stuff that you never learned how to not be in fight or flight, that it's always kind of there, that anxiety, that things feel unsafe, uncertain, anxiety. This can be a reality for a lot of people, and we just get kind of numb to it, and it's not good for us. So he's going to create, he's going to keep breathing. So as he breathes, he's already grounded into the earth. He's going to imagine a safe place, and he's going to think of, I remember as a kid, I used to love to sit under this tree. This tree just looked so strong, and it was a tree in the yard. So sometimes when he felt panicky, when it felt unsafe at home, again, there was domestic violence in the home, he needed a place to kind of hide. And so let's say that there was a tree in the yard, but it was a big yard, or maybe it was like on some property, like maybe their house was on an acre, okay? So maybe it gave them some distance from the home, the chaos in the home, and the tree for him on a deep subconscious level represented strength and protection, and he just felt like the tree got him. The tree understood him, and he could hide behind the tree. Let's say he's a young boy. So, John is, as a young boy, 5 years old, he remembers always hiding behind the other side of this tree. He could go out, far out on the property, and he could sit up against this tree, and he felt the strength of the tree. He felt the tree was quietly somehow understood him, and they couldn't see him. So the abuse in the home, what was going on in the home, it made him feel invisible, because he'd sit on the other side of the tree that faced away from the house. And his 5-year-old was like, I feel safe right here. He got his solitude. That was his place to hide. And so that's his retreat. So we're going to encourage John, as he does this guided meditation, to create a space, within his mind that connects with that tree for his little 5-year-old. So we can take a deep breath and exhale. And John's going to imagine that tree, and he's going to imagine his 5-year-old sitting at that tree. And he's going to build a barrier of energy to encapsulate him in this feeling of protection, this huge, huge pyramid of, let's say, his favorite color is blue, a blue light that covers the whole, this ginormous tree with this huge trunk that, he gets to lean against and feel connected with and feel safe. And he's going to inhale. And John is going to feel the vibrance of this beautiful, his favorite color, electric blue, and it's symbolic of giving a barrier of just containment from the outside world, from everyone. And it's going to encapsulate this powerful tree that was his friend as a child, this powerful tree that understands him. And let's say as he feels this safe place developing, he realizes he always imagined as a kid the animals that lived in this tree and that they were his friends. Maybe he didn't have a whole lot of friends as a kid, and life was hell inside the house, all these stuff going on in the house. And so he, imagined who lived in the tree. So, and maybe he saw them at times. So, okay, there's a squirrel that lives in the tree. So he imagines that squirrel with him, and how he just feels companionship with the elements of nature with this tree. So there's a squirrel that is his friend from the tree. There is, maybe he really liked snakes. And so he's going to imagine now, as he's building this safe place with this meditation, he's going to make this beautiful friend in the tree. Big snake. Maybe he wants a big snake. Python. And python's going to represent, the healing, the transformative healing of the poison that he is going to let go of, from the childhood. And he's going to sit there, and his python, maybe he gives a color to the python, and the python's his protector, and he just feels like, okay, I got to protect her now. I have this wonderful tree. I have this blue light. And he's going to say, but man, I have this anger. I just feel this anger that comes up, that I want to let out of my body. So he's going to imagine a little shovel there. And he has this little shovel, and he shovels in front of the tree. He asks the tree, can I shovel in the dirt in front of you? I promise not to hurt your roots. Is that okay? And the tree's like, yeah, I got you. And so he starts to shovel. And he shovels, and he digs this hole, and he digs this hole. And he feels the snake there watching him, protecting him. He feels the squirrel. It's like his friend, his companionship. He feels the solidness, the strength of the tree. And he's careful he's not hitting the roots. And he's digging and he's digging. And then I want you to imagine putting the rage into the earth. He asks the tree, can you do me a favor? I know you communicate with the dirt, with your roots and everything. I'm going, can you help me? Can you help me communicate with the earth right now, with the dirt, to put this anger? I'm just going to imagine it. I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to dig this hole. And then he takes some breaths. And when he exhales, he imagines this poison, this gunk, this black poison that comes out of his body. He pushes out with his anger. He pushes and he pushes and he pushes, and he allows this anger to say it's okay to be mad. This is a safe place to be mad. And he pushes it and he pushes it and he pushes it out with his fierceness. He finds this part of himself that he says he can push it out. And he pushes it out with his breath, with his fierceness, and it goes into the hole. And he pushes it and he pushes it. And he keeps doing it. So inhales and he exhales and he pushes it out with extreme determination. And this poison and this gunk comes out. He puts it into the earth and then he buries it. And as he buries it, he says, it's okay. This is going to heal. It's going to change. The tree and the earth are going to work together to change it into something, recycle it, transmute it into something good. So John gets to bury it, his 5-year-old self. And because John knows something happened when he was 5. That's why we're doing 5 years old here. So he buries it and he buries it. And then he sits there and he just keeps breathing. So he takes some deep breaths. And John sees his 5-year-old just breathe and feel safe against this tree, that he feels protected by this snake, and he can feel the protection of this blue energy, and he breathes, breathing in deeply, and he exhales, and he breathes in deeply, and he exhales. And John communicates to his 5-year-old self. Every day, at the beginning of the day, I'm going to take 10 minutes to go sit in the yard and do this for you and do this meditation. And as he does it, he just imagines the anger coming out, and he just keeps bearing it and keeps bearing it. And then when he sits there, at the end of it, he's going to think some positive thoughts that he's going to start thinking about himself all day. Whenever he can think about it, he's going to say, I was lovable all that time. All my childhood, I was a good person with a beautiful heart. And my 5-year-old deserved to have love, deserved to feel safe, and deserved to feel good about himself. And I'm just going to keep thinking that for you every day. And when I think it, I'm going to see my body feeling safe. Put the blue light, put the feeling of that connection with the tree and with the snake, and he's just going to remember it, and throughout the day he's going to think some good thoughts to start making those positive thoughts bigger than the negative mental thoughts that he had imprinted on as a kid, and start replacing it. So every day, this is a meditation that John's going to do. I hope you enjoyed my guided meditation, and using your breath and creating a safe space. Again, my name is Michelle Love. You're listening to Dynamic Change. You can go to my website, the YouTube channel, Michelle Love with Dynamic Change and Wellness, for all the shows I do. Thank you. Have a wonderful week. Take care. Bye-bye now.